The knife went into the third tire with a hiss that sounded like a dying breath. Nathan Cross's hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. His 7-year-old daughter Emma's face flashed in his mind. Her smile, her voice asking him that morning why he looked so scared. He'd lied and said he was just tired. He wasn't tired. He was 43 minutes away from watching someone die. The security camera above Bay 7 blinked its red light. Nathan knew it was recording. He knew what this looked like. A janitor with a knife, destroying the CEO's car in the executive parking garage at dawn. They'd call it workplace rage, mental breakdown. They'd arrest him and Emma would be alone. But if he didn't do this, if he walked away and made the safe choice, Victoria Brennan would turn the key in her ignition in exactly 43 minutes, and the bomb strapped underneath her Mercedes would erase her from existence. Nathan had spent the last 30 minutes trying every other option. His phone was in his locker 4 floors up. The parking garage had no cell signal. The security office was on the opposite side of the building, and the bomber had chosen this morning specifically because it was the one day of the month when the head of security was in an off-site training. The emergency call boxes were hardwired to the main system. If Nathan used one, whoever planted the bomb would hear it on their scanner and detonate remotely. He knew this because he'd seen the device, really seen it. Not just glanced at it, but studied it during the 7 minutes he'd spent lying on his back under Victoria Brennan's car with a flashlight, his heart slamming against his ribs. Military grade. Remote detonation capability. Pressure-sensitive backup trigger. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. The 4th tire resisted. Nathan had to saw at it twice before the blade bit through. The air rushed out with a sound like a scream. Freeze! Hands where I can see them. Nathan looked up. 2 security guards stood 15 feet away, weapons drawn. Behind them, the elevator doors were closing. Someone had called it in. He dropped the knife and raised his hands. His fingerprints were all over it. His uniform was covered in grease from crawling under the car. The evidence was perfect and completely damning. I can explain, Nathan said, his voice barely steady. There's a bomb. Save it. The first guard, Mitchell. Nathan had cleaned his office 100 times, grabbed Nathan's arm and wrenched it behind his back. You're done. The second guard was already on his radio. We've got him. Executive garage, Bay 7. Suspect in custody. Vehicle disabled. Ms. Brennan is en route. ETA 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Nathan's chest tightened. Victoria would arrive. See her destroyed car, see him in handcuffs, and she'd demand answers. They'd move her to a different vehicle. They'd get her to her meeting, and whoever planted that bomb would adapt, would try again, would succeed next time because Nathan had just burned the only warning he could give, unless he could make them listen, make them look under the car before they moved it, make them understand that this wasn't rage or revenge. This was the only choice that kept her alive. Please, Nathan said as Mitchell forced him toward the security office. Just look under the car, please, before anyone moves it. Mitchell's grip tightened. You're going to prison, Cross. Whatever sob story you're planning, save it for the judge. The elevator dinged. Victoria Brennan stepped out, her heels clicking against concrete. She was 41, dark hair pulled back, wearing the charcoal suit she always wore for critical meetings. Her eyes went to her car first. 3 tires flat, rubber shredded across the garage floor. Then to Nathan, handcuffed between 2 guards. Her expression shifted from confusion to fury in less than a second. What the hell is this? Nathan met her eyes. This was his only chance. His only moment to say the thing that would make her pause, make her question, make her suspicious enough to check. There's a bomb under your car, he said, his voice clear and steady despite everything. Planted sometime between midnight and 5 a.m. Military grade, remote detonation, pressure-sensitive backup. I found it at 6:17 this morning. I had no phone, no way to call for help without alerting whoever's listening. So I slashed your tires. I had to stop you from getting in that car. Silence. Complete, ringing silence. Victoria stared at him. Mitchell and the other guard exchanged glances. Someone laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "You expect us to believe?" Mitchell started. "Check the car," Nathan interrupted. His eyes never left Victoria's. "Right now, before anyone touches it. Get a bomb tech, get the police, but don't move that vehicle until someone's looked underneath it." Victoria's hand moved unconsciously to her neck, to the small pendant she always wore. Nathan had seen her touch it 100 times during late nights when she worked alone in her office and thought no one was watching. It had been her father's. The man who'd built this company from nothing and died 6 months ago, leaving Victoria everything, including enemies Nathan was only beginning to understand. "Why would anyone want to kill me?" she asked quietly. "Because of the merger," Nathan said. "Because someone doesn't want Hartwell Corporation and Brennan Industries to combine. Because your meeting this morning will finalize a deal that threatens someone powerful enough to plan an assassination and make it look like an accident." Victoria's eyes narrowed. She was thinking, calculating. Nathan could see the exact moment she decided to take the threat seriously, not because she trusted him, but because the alternative was worse. She turned to Mitchell. "Call the bomb squad, right now, and no one touches that car until they've cleared it." "Ma'am, this is obviously—" "Now, Mitchell." The guard hesitated, then pulled out his radio. Nathan's knees almost gave out. She'd listened. She'd actually listened. But the nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because in 90 seconds, the parking garage would be swarming with police and bomb techs and executives, and someone in this building, someone who knew Victoria's schedule, her routines, her security protocols, was watching, waiting, ready to detonate if their original plan failed. Nathan looked at Victoria again. "Whoever did this is still here. And they're listening." Victoria's face went pale. She understood immediately what he meant. Mitchell was already on the radio, calling for backup, for the bomb squad, for every protocol the company had. His voice echoed through the concrete structure. Each word was a broadcast to whoever was monitoring police frequencies. "Stop!" Victoria said sharply. "Mitchell, put that down." "Ma'am, if there really is a device, then whoever planted it is listening to every word you're saying right now." She turned to the second guard. "Davis, go upstairs. Use a landline in my office. Call the police directly. Tell them we need a bomb unit. Code silence protocol. Don't use the radio. Don't use your cell. Go!" Davis ran for the stairs. Victoria looked back at Nathan. "You said you saw the device. Describe it." Nathan's mouth was dry. Cylindrical housing, approximately 8 inches long, 3 inches diameter. Attached to the undercarriage with industrial magnets. Green and red wires visible through a clear panel. Digital timer, but it's not counting down. That means it's waiting for a trigger. Remote detonation antenna, maybe 6 inches, mounted on the left side, and a secondary mechanism attached to the brake line, pressure sensitive. If someone moves the car without disarming it, it goes off anyway. Victoria's breathing had changed, short, controlled. "How do you know what you're looking at?" "I was Army combat engineer, explosive ordnance disposal. I got out 4 years ago after a training accident, but I still remember the work." Mitchell's expression shifted. He hadn't known that. Nobody did. Nathan's employment file listed his military service, but not his specialty. He'd wanted to leave that life behind, become invisible, be nothing more than the man who emptied trash bins and mopped floors. "If you're lying," Mitchell started. "Then I just destroyed my life for nothing," Nathan said. "But I'm not lying. And if you don't let the bomb squad confirm it before anyone gets near that car, someone's going to die." The bomb squad arrived 23 minutes later. By then, the executive garage had been evacuated except for Nathan, Victoria, and 2 police officers who'd taken up positions behind concrete pillars. Nathan sat on the cold floor, still handcuffed, watching the techs in their heavy suits approach the Mercedes with robotic precision. Victoria stood 10 feet away, her phone pressed to her ear. She was calling board members, rescheduling the merger meeting, her voice steady even as Nathan could see her hand shaking slightly. When she hung up, She walked over and sat down beside him on the concrete. "If you're wrong about this," she said quietly, "I just canceled the most important meeting of my career and caused a company-wide panic. I know. And if you're right, someone tried to kill me this morning and I have no idea who." Nathan looked at her. Up close, he could see the exhaustion in her face, the weight she'd been carrying. "When did the threats start?" She turned sharply. "How do you know about the threats?" "I clean your office. 3 weeks ago, I found a shredded letter in your personal trash. You'd torn it into small pieces, but I could still read parts of it. Stop the merger or you'll regret it. You never reported it to security." Victoria's jaw tightened. "Because I get a dozen threats a month. Angry shareholders, competitors, people who think I don't deserve my father's company because I'm a woman. I can't investigate every anonymous letter. This one was different. It was hand-delivered. No postage. Someone walked into this building, got past security, and put it directly on your desk." "How do you know that?" "Because there was security footage from that morning. I checked the logs when I was cleaning the surveillance room. Your office door never opened except when you arrived, which means it was placed there after hours, when the cleaning crew has access." Victoria stared at him. "You've been investigating this?" "I've been paying attention." "It's different." One of the bomb techs stood up and gave a thumbs-up signal. Then he walked over, his helmet under his arm, his face grim. "You were right," he said to Nathan. "Military-grade device, remote detonation capability, pressure backup on the brake line. Sophisticated work. Whoever built this knew exactly what they were doing." He looked at Victoria. "If you'd started that car, ma'am, the explosion would have taken out everything within a 30-foot radius." Victoria's face went white. She stood abruptly, walked a few steps away, her hand covering her mouth. Nathan watched her shoulders rise and fall as she fought to control her breathing. The police officer approached Nathan. "We need your statement. Everything you saw, everything you touched." Nathan gave them the timeline. How he'd been doing his routine sweep of the garage at 6:04 a.m., checking for any maintenance issues. How he'd noticed fresh grease marks on the concrete under Victoria's car, which was unusual because the vehicle had been serviced just last week. How he'd gotten down on his back with his flashlight to investigate and seen the device attached to the undercarriage. "Why didn't you call security immediately?" the officer asked. "I started to. Then I saw the antenna. Remote detonation means someone's monitoring, probably listening to police scanners. The second I made a call, they could trigger it. Ms. Brennan was scheduled to arrive at 7:30. I had less than 90 minutes to figure out how to stop her from getting in that car without alerting whoever planted it." "So you destroyed her tires?" "I disabled her vehicle in a way that wouldn't trigger the pressure sensor. The bomb was designed to detonate when the car started moving. Slashing tires meant she physically couldn't drive it, but I didn't touch the chassis or the brake system." The officer wrote everything down. When he finished, he looked at Nathan with something approaching respect. "That's either the smartest thing I've ever heard, or the craziest." "It's both," Nathan said quietly. They uncuffed him 15 minutes later, after the bomb tech confirmed that Nathan's description matched the device exactly, and that he couldn't have known those details unless he'd actually seen it. Victoria had been on the phone with her lawyers, explaining why she needed to delay the merger meeting by 48 hours. When she hung up, she walked back to Nathan. "The board is furious. They think I'm stalling. Richard Sutton just called me personally to say I'm destroying my father's legacy." "Who's Richard Sutton?" "Chief Operating Officer, my father's oldest friend. He's been with the company for 23 years. Victoria paused. "He's also one of 4 people who knew my schedule changed this morning." Nathan's attention sharpened. "The meeting was supposed to be later?" "It was scheduled for 10 a.m. We moved it to 8:30 last night because Hartwell's CEO had a flight conflict. Only 4 people knew about the change. Me, Richard, my executive assistant Claire, and Derek Huang from security." "Derek's the head of security?" "Yes, he's former military, like you. He's been here 2 years." Nathan's mind was working through the implications. If the bomb was planted between midnight and 5 a.m., and only 4 people knew you'd be arriving early, Then one of them is trying to kill me. Victoria's voice was flat, emotionless. The shock was setting in. A black sedan pulled into the garage. A man in his 50s got out, silver hair perfectly styled, expensive suit. He walked toward them with the confidence of someone who'd never been questioned. "Victoria, what's going on?" "I got a message about a bomb threat." "Richard." Victoria's voice was carefully neutral. "Someone tried to kill me this morning. They planted an explosive device under my car." Richard's face showed exactly the right amount of shock. "My God, are you all right? Who would do this?" "That's what we're trying to figure out." She gestured to Nathan. "This is Nathan Cross, one of our maintenance staff. He found the device and stopped me from getting in the car." Richard looked at Nathan, and for just a fraction of a second, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? Calculation? It was gone before Nathan could identify it. "Well done," Richard said, extending his hand. Nathan shook it. The man's grip was firm, practiced. "You may have saved Victoria's life." "Just doing my job. Still, the company owes you a debt." Richard turned back to Victoria. "We need to discuss security protocols. If someone got into the executive garage—" "They had access," Nathan interrupted. "The device was placed precisely. They knew which car, which parking spot, when you'd be arriving. This wasn't random." Richard's smile tightened slightly. "Are you suggesting an inside job?" "I'm suggesting whoever did this knows this building intimately." The police officer stepped forward. "We'll be interviewing everyone with garage access. Mr. Sutton, we'll need to speak with you as well." "Of course. Whatever you need." Richard's voice was smooth, cooperative. But Nathan noticed his hand move to his pocket, checking his phone. A nervous habit or something more? Victoria's executive assistant Claire arrived next. A woman in her early 30s, her expression panicked. "I just heard. Oh my God, Victoria, are you okay?" "I'm fine. Thanks to Nathan." Claire looked at Nathan, seemed to really see him for the first time, despite passing him in the hallways for 3 years. "Thank you. I don't know what we would have done if—" Her voice broke. Real emotion, Nathan thought, or excellent acting. Derek Huang was the last to arrive. He came down the stairs instead of the elevator, moving quickly, his security badge bouncing against his chest. When he saw the bomb squad van and the police presence, his face hardened. "I leave for one morning training session and this happens." He looked at Victoria. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. This is a massive security failure. It's not your fault, Derek." The device was sophisticated, professional. Derek's eyes moved to Nathan, and Nathan saw something he recognized from his military days. Assessment. Derek was sizing him up, reading his posture, his awareness, trying to determine if Nathan was a threat or an asset. "You found it?" Derek asked. "Yes. Combat Engineer, EOD 3rd Infantry Division." Derek nodded slowly. "I was 2nd Ranger Battalion, deployed twice. You've got good instincts?" It should have felt like camaraderie, two veterans acknowledging each other, but something in Derek's tone felt off. Too casual, too friendly for a situation this serious. Nathan's phone buzzed in his pocket. Mrs. Chen, his elderly neighbor who watched Emma during his night shifts. He'd forgotten to check in. "Excuse me," he said to Victoria. "I need to make a call." He walked toward the stairwell, dialing Mrs. Chen back. She answered on the first ring. "Nathan, I saw the news. They're saying there was a bomb threat at your building?" "I'm fine. Is Emma okay?" "She's eating breakfast. She doesn't know yet." "But Nathan, she was asking about you this morning. She said you looked scared when you left for work." Nathan's chest tightened. Emma always knew. She'd inherited his ability to read people, to sense when something was wrong. "Tell her I'm okay. Tell her I'll be home soon." He hung up and turned to find Victoria standing behind him. "You have a daughter?" "Emma, she's 7. Victoria's expression softened slightly. "You risked everything this morning. If you'd been wrong, if I hadn't listened, I couldn't let you die. Emma's already lost her mother. She doesn't need to watch her father go to prison for doing nothing." "Her mother left 4 years ago. Walked out one morning and never came back. Emma was 3. She doesn't remember her. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My father died 6 months ago. Heart attack, they said. Sudden. No warning." She touched the pendant at her neck. "I've never believed it." Nathan understood immediately what she was implying. "You think someone killed him?" "I think my father was getting close to discovering something wrong in the company. Financial irregularities he'd been investigating quietly. And then he died, and I inherited everything, and the pressure to complete this merger started immediately." "Who pushed hardest for the merger?" "Richard. He said it was my father's final vision, that we had to honor his legacy." She paused. "But I found my father's private notes 3 weeks ago. He'd written that he was suspicious of the Hartwell deal, that the numbers didn't add up." Before Nathan could respond, Derek appeared at the top of the stairs. "Ms. Brennan, the police need you for another statement. They want to review security footage from the past week." Victoria nodded. She looked at Nathan. "Don't go anywhere. I need to talk to you when this is finished." She left with Derek. Nathan watched them go, his instincts screaming that something was wrong. The way Derek had interrupted exactly when Victoria was about to reveal more information. The way he'd positioned himself between her and Nathan. Nathan pulled out his own phone and opened the security app he'd installed months ago. As a maintenance worker, he had low-level access to building systems for repairs. Most people didn't know the app kept cached footage for 10 days. He scrolled back to 3 nights ago, to the executive garage, to the timestamp when Victoria's car would have been parked alone. The footage showed a figure in maintenance uniform approaching the Mercedes at 2:47 a.m. The person moved with purpose, dropped down, slid under the vehicle, emerged 16 minutes later carrying a small bag. Nathan zoomed in on the person's face as they walked past a camera. His blood went cold. It was Derek Huang. Nathan's mind raced through the implications. Derek was head of security, former military with explosive ordnance training. He had access to every part of the building, knew every protocol, could move through the facility at any hour without raising suspicion. And he'd been hired 2 years ago, just 18 months before Victoria's father died. Nathan scrolled further back in the cached footage. 7 days ago, the employee break room. He watched Derek enter at 11:47 p.m., walk directly to the bulletin board, and remove a single piece of paper. The drawing Emma had made during family day. A careful sketch of the parking garage layout with labeled parking spots, including Victoria's. Emma's innocent art had become a map for murder. Nathan copied both video files to his personal cloud storage, then called Victoria. She answered on the second ring, her voice tense. "Nathan, what is it? I need to meet you somewhere that isn't your office or your home. Somewhere no one would think to look for you." There was a pause while she thought. "There's a diner on Lexington and 42nd, the Bluebird. My father used to take me there when I was a child. Nobody from the company knows about it. 1 hour, come alone. And Victoria, don't tell anyone where you're going. Not Richard, not Claire, especially not Derek." "Why especially not Derek?" "Because I know who planted the bomb, and I have proof." The Bluebird Diner looked like it had been preserved from 1972 and never updated. Red vinyl booths, checkered floor, a counter with spinning stools. The kind of place where the coffee was terrible, but nobody cared, because that wasn't why you came. Victoria was already there, sitting in a corner booth with her back to the wall. She'd changed out of her business suit into jeans and a simple sweater. Without the armor of executive clothing, she looked younger and more vulnerable. Nathan slid into the seat across from her. A waitress appeared immediately, poured coffee neither of them had asked for, and disappeared again. "You look different," Victoria said. "So do you." "My father used to bring me here every Sunday morning, before the company got big, before he became someone everyone wanted something from. This was where we were just us." She wrapped her hands around the coffee mug. "I haven't been back since he died." Nathan pulled out his phone and opened the security footage. 7 days ago, your head of security removed a drawing from the employee break room. It was made by my daughter during a family day visit. It showed the parking garage layout with labeled parking spots. including yours. Victoria watched the footage, her face going pale. Derek took it. 3 nights ago, the same man was in the executive garage at 2:47 a.m. carrying an equipment bag. He was there for 19 minutes. When he left, the bag was noticeably lighter. Nathan swiped to the next video. That's military posture. That's someone who knows exactly what he's doing and isn't worried about being questioned. Derek's former military, 2nd Ranger Battalion. He told me when I hired him 2 years ago. Victoria's voice was hollow. Richard recommended him. Said we needed professional security after some threats I'd been receiving. What kind of threats? Anonymous letters, emails from burner accounts. Nothing specific enough to investigate, but enough to make me nervous. Richard said Derek was the perfect person to handle it. She looked up at Nathan. Richard brought Derek into the company. They've been working together for 2 years. When did your father die? 6 months ago, 4 months after Derek was hired. The implications settled between them like a weight. Nathan said quietly, "What if Richard's been planning this for years? What if he brought Derek in specifically to handle problems that got in the way?" Victoria's hand moved to her pendant. My father was investigating financial irregularities. Richard would have known. If my father was getting close to discovering something that could destroy Richard's career or put him in prison, then your father became a problem that needed to be handled. And 6 months later, when I started asking the same questions my father asked, I became the next problem. Victoria pulled out her own phone. Her hands were shaking slightly as she opened her email and scrolled back through months of correspondence. Richard's been pushing the Hartwell merger since the day after my father's funeral. He said the deal was worth $4.2 billion and would secure the company's future. But my father's letter said the numbers didn't match what Richard was telling the board. What does that mean? It means someone's lying about how much money is actually involved, or where it's going. She found what she was looking for and turned the phone toward Nathan. This is the merger agreement Richard presented to the board. It shows Hartwell Corporation acquiring Brennan Industries for $4.2 billion, with Richard staying on as COO under the new structure. What did your father's notes say? That the actual value Hartwell was offering was only $2.8 billion. That $1.4 billion was missing from the documentation. That he couldn't figure out where that money was supposed to go. Victoria's voice was tight. If Richard's been embezzling or setting up offshore accounts, the merger would bury the evidence. New ownership, new financial structure, everything gets reorganized and the old records become irrelevant. But if you died before the merger closed, Richard would take over as CEO. He'd control the narrative completely. And if I died in a car bombing, it would look like corporate terrorism or a random act of violence. No one would investigate Richard because he'd be the grieving family friend stepping up to save the company in crisis. Nathan thought about the device under her car, the sophisticated trigger system, the military-grade components. Derek Huang has the skills to build that bomb, and Richard has the motive to order it built. But we can't prove any of this. Security footage of Derek taking a drawing isn't evidence of attempted murder. And financial documents that might show embezzlement are all controlled by Richard. Then we need to make them show their hand. We need them to think you're still a threat, that you're close to exposing them. If they're desperate enough, they'll make a mistake. Victoria stared at him. You want to use me as bait. I want to make them think you have evidence, that you're about to go public. We control the situation this time. We know who they are and what they're capable of. That gives us the advantage. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, My father spent his entire life building this company. He started with nothing and created something that mattered. And Richard, someone he trusted completely, has been stealing from him. Potentially killed him, and tried to kill me to cover it up. Her voice hardened. I'm not letting them win. Whatever it takes, I'm stopping this. Then we need to move fast. The board votes tomorrow morning on removing you as CEO. If Richard wins that vote, it's over. He'll have complete control and we'll have no way to investigate him. So what do we do? Nathan pulled up another file on his phone. We get the FBI to execute a warrant on Richard's personal communications and Derek's security access logs. But we need probable cause that goes beyond suspicion. How do we get that? We make Richard think you have evidence. We make him panic. And we record him trying to destroy that evidence or silence you. Victoria's expression was uncertain. That's incredibly dangerous. Yes, but it's the only way to prove what they've done before they can cover their tracks. Nathan paused. I can't force you to do this. If you want to walk away, let the board remove you and disappear somewhere safe. No, Victoria's voice was firm. They killed my father. They tried to kill me. I'm not running. Nathan nodded slowly. Then we do this tonight, before Richard knows we're coming. They spent the next 2 hours planning. Nathan called the FBI from a burner phone he kept for emergencies, a habit from his military days. Special Agent Jennifer Moore was skeptical until Nathan sent her the security footage of Derek planting the device and removing Emma's drawing. This changes everything, Moore said, her voice sharp with focus. We can get warrants for both Sutton and Huang based on this evidence, but if you're proposing what I think you're proposing, using Ms. Brennan as bait to get a confession, that's extremely risky. Richard Sutton is trying to remove her as CEO tomorrow morning, Nathan said. If he succeeds, he'll have complete control of the company and unlimited resources to cover his tracks. This is our only window. There was a long pause. We'll wire Ms. Brennan's office. Audio and video coverage. We'll have tactical teams positioned around the building. But Mr. Cross, I need you to understand something. If Sutton or Huang suspects this is a trap, they could turn violent very quickly. Are you prepared for that? Nathan thought about Emma waiting at home, about the promise he'd made to always come back to her, about the team leader who died in Mosul because Nathan had missed a secondary trigger on an IED. I'm prepared, he said, and I'll be inside the building. I know the maintenance corridors better than anyone. If something goes wrong, I can get to Victoria faster than your team. You're not trained for tactical operations anymore. Your back injury won't matter if Victoria's dead because we waited for protocol. Moore sighed. Be at the FBI field office at 6 p.m. We'll brief you then. Nathan went home first. Emma and Mrs. Chen were at the kitchen table, folding dumplings together. Emma's hands were clumsy but determined, creating lopsided packages that Mrs. Chen accepted without comment. Daddy! Emma jumped up, flour dusting her cheeks. Look what we made! Nathan hugged her, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and childhood. They're perfect. They're ugly, Emma corrected matter-of-factly. But Mrs. Chen says ugly dumplings taste the same as pretty ones. Wisdom, Mrs. Chen said, sliding a tray into the steamer, also applies to people. Nathan met her eyes. She knew. She always knew. After they ate, Nathan tucked Emma into bed. She held his hand tightly. You're going back there tonight, aren't you? To help the lady. Yes. Is it dangerous? Nathan thought about lying, about protecting her from the truth. But Emma deserved honesty. Yes, but I'll have help. The police will be there. Lots of people making sure everyone stays safe. Including you? Including me. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Mommy left because she was scared. She told me once, before she went away, that the world was too scary and she couldn't be brave anymore. Nathan felt his chest tighten. Emma, but you're brave even when you're scared. I can tell you're scared right now, but you're still going. She looked at him with those two old eyes. That's the difference between you and Mommy. Nathan pulled her close. I'm going because it's right. Not because I'm brave. That's what brave means, Daddy. After Emma finally fell asleep, Nathan found Mrs. Chen in the living room, her hands wrapped around tea that had long gone cold. She understands more than you think, Mrs. Chen said quietly. I know. Her mother left scars. Every time you walk out that door, Emma wonders if you'll come back. Tonight will be harder for her than most nights. I have to do this. I know. Your father was the same way. He couldn't walk past someone who needed help. Mrs. Chen's eyes were distant with memory. He died helping strangers during the factory fire in Beijing. I was pregnant with you when it happened. He could have gotten out safely, but he went back for others. Nathan stared at her. "You never told me how he died. You always said it was an accident." It was an accident that he was there at all. But once he was there, what happened next was choice. She looked at him steadily. "You are very much your father's son. This is not a criticism. But Emma is also your daughter, and she has already lost one parent. Don't let her lose both because you can't walk away from danger. If I walk away, Victoria Brennan dies, and whoever killed her father gets away with murder. And if you die, Emma becomes an orphan. These are the calculations we make." Mrs. Chen stood slowly, her joints creaking. "I will stay with her tonight. All night if necessary. Go do what you believe is right. But Nathan, come home. Your daughter's heart cannot survive losing you." At 6 p.m., Nathan arrived at the FBI field office. Agent Moore and 3 other agents were waiting in a conference room filled with monitors and communications equipment. Moore handed him a small device no bigger than a button. "Audio transmitter. It goes under your collar. We'll hear everything you hear." One of the other agents pulled up a blueprint of Brennan Industries on the main screen. "Maintenance corridors here, here, and here. You'll enter through the service entrance on the east side. Ms. Brennan will already be in her office. Richard Sutton is scheduled to arrive at 8. Our team will be positioned in unmarked vehicles around the building perimeter." "What about Derek Huang?" Nathan asked. "We've been tracking his phone. He's currently at his apartment in Brooklyn. If he moves toward Brennan Industries, we'll know immediately." Moore looked at Nathan seriously. "Your job is simple. Stay in the maintenance corridors. Listen, if we need you to intervene, we'll radio you directly. Do not engage Richard Sutton or Derek Huang unless Ms. Brennan's life is in immediate danger. Understood?" "Understood." "And Mr. Cross, if something goes wrong, if you're compromised, you get out immediately. You have a daughter waiting at home. Don't make her wait forever." Nathan nodded, but they both knew he was lying. If Victoria's life was at stake, he wouldn't leave. Couldn't leave. Not after everything. At 7:30, Nathan entered Brennan Industries through the service entrance. The building felt different at night when he wasn't wearing his janitor uniform. He moved through corridors he'd cleaned 1,000 times, now seeing them as tactical spaces rather than work assignments. His radio crackled softly. Agent Moore's voice. "Ms. Brennan is in position. Office is wired for audio and video. We have eyes on all entrances." Nathan made his way to the maintenance corridor that ran behind the executive offices. A narrow access hallway that most employees didn't know existed. There was a ventilation grate that opened into Victoria's office. He'd repaired it 6 months ago. He could hear Victoria pacing, her heels clicking against marble. She was nervous. His radio crackled again. Richard Sutton just entered the building. He's alone, arriving at the executive floor now. Nathan positioned himself at the grate and waited. He could see Victoria through the slats. She stood behind her desk, her hand resting near her phone, her posture rigid with tension. The office door opened. Richard's voice was smooth, concerned. "Victoria, thank you for agreeing to meet. I didn't have much choice. You're trying to remove me as CEO. I'm trying to save the company." "There's a difference." Richard's footsteps moved deeper into the office. "Your father built this business from nothing. I watched him sacrifice everything to make it succeed. And now you're throwing it away because you're too stubborn to accept guidance." "Guidance? You pushed me to sign a merger agreement the week after my father's funeral. You've been rushing this deal for 6 months without explaining why. Because the company needs it, because the board needs it, because your father wanted it." My father had doubts. I found his notes. There was a pause. When Richard spoke again, his voice had changed. Sharper, more controlled. "What notes?" "Letters he wrote. Questions about the financial structure of the Hartwell deal. He said the numbers didn't add up. That money was missing." Nathan watched through the grate. Victoria stood behind her desk, her hand resting near her phone. Richard was closer to the door, his body language tense. "Your father was sick at the end, confused. You can't trust everything he wrote in those final weeks. He wasn't confused. He was investigating you. The words hung in the air like a blade. Richard's expression shifted. The concerned family friend vanished, replaced by something colder. Be very careful what you're accusing me of, Victoria. I'm not accusing. I'm stating facts. You've been embezzling from this company. The merger with Hartwell would have buried the evidence. And when my father got too close to discovering the truth, you had him killed. That's insane. Is it? Because someone planted a bomb under my car this morning. Someone with military training and access to the executive garage. Someone you brought into this company 2 years ago. Richard's face went pale. You're talking about Derek. I'm talking about the man you hired to handle your problems. My father was a problem. I became a problem. How many others, Richard? How many people have you hurt to protect yourself? Richard pulled out his phone. This conversation is over. I'm calling the board right now. They need to know you've had a complete breakdown. They already know. The FBI has been listening to every word. Richard froze. His eyes went to the corners of the office, searching for cameras, for wires. When he looked back at Victoria, the mask was completely gone. What remained was desperation and fury. You stupid girl. You have no idea what you've done. He moved toward her fast. Too fast. Nathan was already pushing through the maintenance door, his body remembering combat reflexes, even as his back screamed in protest. But Richard didn't reach Victoria. Derek Huang stepped through the office door, a gun in his hand. Nobody move. The room went silent. Nathan stood half visible in the maintenance corridor doorway, his hands raised. Victoria pressed herself against the desk, her face white. Richard turned slowly, his expression collapsing from anger into something approaching relief. Derek, thank God. She's lost her mind. Shut up. Derek's voice was flat, professional. The gun stayed steady on Victoria. You brought the FBI into this. That wasn't smart. I didn't know she'd... You left evidence, security footage, financial records. You were supposed to be careful. Derek's attention shifted to Nathan, and you. The janitor. You're the one who found the device this morning. Nathan met his eyes. Yes, that was good work, professional. You almost had me convinced it was random luck until I checked your file. Combat engineer, EOD specialist. You knew exactly what you were looking at, just like you knew exactly how to build it. Derek smiled slightly. It didn't reach his eyes. Richard promised this would be clean. One device, one target, one problem solved. But you complicated things, and now the FBI knows too much. Richard was backing toward the window. Derek, we need to leave. Right now. We can't do anything. You understand that, right? Derek's voice was almost gentle. The moment Victoria called the FBI, this was over. There's no walking away from attempted murder of a CEO. No amount of money makes that disappear. But you said... I said a lot of things to keep you paying me. You really thought I was doing this for $500,000? Derek laughed, a sound without humor. I've been recording every conversation we've had for 2 years. Every order you gave me. Every payment you made. I have enough evidence to bury you 10 times over. Richard's face went slack with betrayal. Why? Insurance. I'm former military, not stupid. If this ever went wrong, I needed leverage. Turns out I was right to prepare. Derek looked at Victoria. Your father was a good man. I respected him. When Richard ordered me to stage his death as a heart attack, I thought about refusing. But the money was real, and I'd already committed to worse things overseas. One more dead man didn't seem like it would matter. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. You killed my father. I gave him an injection that mimicked cardiac arrest symptoms. It was fast. He didn't suffer. Derek said it like he was describing a repair job. Mechanical. Detached. Richard told me your father was about to destroy the company with his investigation, that if we didn't act, hundreds of people would lose their jobs. I believed him then. And now I know Richard's a coward and a thief who's been stealing from this company for years, and that your father died trying to stop him. Derek's finger moved slightly on the trigger, which brings us to the current situation. The FBI is listening. They're outside, and I'm holding a gun on the CEO of a major corporation. This ends badly, no matter what I do. Nathan's radio was silent. Agent Moore's team would be moving into position, but they wouldn't breach the office while Derek had a weapon on Victoria. Standard hostage protocol meant negotiation first, force only as a last resort. Nathan needed to change the dynamic, make Derek see a different option. "You said you respected Victoria's father," Nathan said quietly. "Then respect what he was trying to do. He was trying to protect his daughter and his company. You can finish that work." Derek's eyes shifted to him. "By doing what? Turning myself in? Spending the rest of my life in prison? By telling the truth. By giving the FBI everything you have on Richard. By making sure the man who actually ordered the murders doesn't walk away clean. I planted the bomb. I killed her father. Cooperation doesn't erase that." "No, but it means something. It means Victoria's father didn't die for nothing. It means the company gets justice. It means—" Nathan paused, thinking about Emma waiting at home. "It means you choose how this story ends. You can go down as a murderer, or you can go down as the person who stopped worse from happening." Derek was quiet. The gun hadn't moved, but something in his posture had shifted. Calculation, weighing options. Richard made his choice then. He lunged for the door, his survival instinct overriding any remaining dignity. Derek's gun tracked toward him almost lazily. "Don't." Richard froze halfway to the exit. "You're not leaving," Derek said flatly. "If I'm going down for this, you're coming with me." Nathan's radio crackled softly in his ear. Agent Moore's voice. "Breach in 30 seconds. Get down." Nathan caught Victoria's eye. She understood immediately. She dropped behind her desk just as Derek's attention shifted toward the sound of movement in the corridor. The office door exploded inward. FBI agents flooded the room in tactical formation, weapons drawn, voices overlapping in a controlled chaos of commands. "Gun down! Hands up! Down on the ground!" Derek dropped his weapon and raised his hands. His face showed nothing, not fear, not regret, just the blank acceptance of someone who'd known this was always how it would end. Richard tried to run, made it 3 steps before an agent tackled him to the marble floor. His expensive suit tore, his carefully maintained dignity shattered into something small and desperate. Nathan pulled Victoria to her feet. She was shaking, her hand still gripping the edge of the desk like it was the only solid thing in a dissolving world. "It's over," Nathan said quietly. Victoria looked at Richard being handcuffed, at Derek surrounded by federal agents, at the office that had been her father's and was now a crime scene. Her hand moved to the pendant at her neck. "My father knew," she whispered. "He knew and he tried to stop it and they killed him anyway. But they didn't win. You made sure of that." Agent Moore approached them. "Ms. Brennan, we'll need your statement. Mr. Cross, yours as well. But first, medical needs to check you both." She paused, looking at Nathan. "Your daughter called the field office 15 minutes ago. She said you promised to come home and she wanted to make sure we knew you had to keep that promise." Nathan felt something break loose in his chest. Emma, calling the FBI to remind them her father had to survive. "I need to go home." Moore nodded. "Give your statement tomorrow. Tonight, go be with your daughter." Nathan drove home through streets that looked the same but felt different. Everything had shifted in the span of 12 hours. He'd been invisible this morning. Now his face was on the news. He'd been just a janitor. Now he was evidence in a federal case. But none of that mattered compared to the promise he'd made. The apartment building appeared ahead, its familiar worn brick somehow more precious than it had been this morning. Nathan took the stairs 2 at a time, ignoring the protest from his back. 4th floor. Their door. He opened it. Emma was sitting on the couch in her pajamas, Mrs. Chen beside her. The television was on, muted news footage showing Brennan Industries, police lights, federal vehicles. Emma's drawing notebook lay open in her lap. But she wasn't drawing. She was just waiting. The moment she saw him, she moved. Not running, not the desperate launch from this morning. Just a steady walk across the room, her small face set with determination that broke his heart. She wrapped her arms around his waist and pressed her face against him. "You kept your promise." Nathan knelt down so they were eye to eye. "I'll always keep that promise. The FBI lady said you helped catch bad people. She said you were very brave. I was very scared." Emma considered this. Mrs. Chen says brave and scared can be the same thing. Mrs. Chen stood slowly from the couch. "I'll go home now. Emma should sleep in her own bed tonight." She paused at the door, her weathered hand resting briefly on Nathan's shoulder. "Your father would be proud. Not because you were brave, because you came home." After she left, Nathan heated up leftover dumplings and sat with Emma at the kitchen table. She ate slowly, watching him like she was memorizing his face. "The lady on TV said you saved someone's life." "I helped. A lot of people helped." "Was she nice? The lady you saved?" Nathan thought about Victoria standing in her office, facing down the man who'd killed her father. About the strength it took to set a trap for murderers while grieving someone you'd lost. "Yes, she's very nice. And very strong. Like you. Like both of us." Emma finished her dumpling and pushed the plate away. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always." "When Mommy left, you said she was scared of the world, that she couldn't be brave anymore." Emma's voice was careful, like she was handling something fragile. "Do you think she'll ever stop being scared?" Nathan felt the question settle in his chest. Emma rarely asked about her mother. The abandonment had carved a space inside her that she'd learned to protect. "I don't know, sweetheart. Some people's scared is bigger than other people's. Your mom's scared was so big it made her run away from the things she loved most. Even me? Even you. But that doesn't mean you weren't worth staying for. It means her scared was stronger than her love. And that's sad for her, because she's missing watching you grow into the most amazing person." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm scared sometimes too. That you won't come home. That something will happen and I'll be alone. That's a normal scared. Everyone has that. But you come home anyway, even when you're scared. Because you're worth coming home to. Every single time." Emma nodded slowly, processing this. Then she picked up her drawing notebook and opened it to a fresh page. She drew for several minutes while Nathan watched. A simple sketch of their apartment building, with a figure standing in the window of their fourth-floor unit. "That's me," she said, pointing to the figure. "Waiting for you." Nathan looked at the drawing, at his daughter's understanding of their life distilled into pencil lines. The figure in the window wasn't sad or scared, just present, just waiting with certainty. "Can I keep this one?" he asked. Emma tore the page out carefully and handed it to him. "So you always remember to come home." Nathan tucked it into his wallet, next to the only photo he had of Emma as a toddler. 2 images of his daughter, past and present, both reminding him what mattered. They watched a cartoon together until Emma's eyes grew heavy. Nathan carried her to bed. She was getting too big for this, but she curled against him anyway, trusting gravity and his arms equally. "Daddy? Yeah. Tomorrow can we do normal things, like go to the park and get ice cream and not save anyone's life?" Nathan smiled against her hair. "That sounds perfect." The weekend passed in the gentle rhythm of normal things. Saturday morning, Nathan and Emma walked to the park 3 blocks from their apartment. The playground equipment was old, paint chipped and faded, but Emma didn't care. She'd been coming here since she was 3. Nathan pushed her on the swings, watching her hair lift with each arc. She laughed, a sound so pure it made his chest ache with gratitude. 12 hours ago, he'd been facing a man with a gun. Now he was doing this. The contrast felt almost impossible. "Higher, Daddy!" He pushed harder, and Emma soared. Afterward, they got ice cream from the truck that parked near the basketball courts every Saturday. Emma chose strawberry, the same flavor she always chose. Nathan got vanilla. They sat on a bench and ate in companionable silence. "Is everything going to be different now?" Emma asked suddenly. Nathan looked at her. "Some things will be different. I'll have a new job. Different hours, different responsibilities. But you'll still come home? Every single day. Emma nodded, accepting this with the seriousness she brought to important matters. The kids at school are going to know about you. Mrs. Chen said you're on the news. Does that bother you? She thought about it, licking melting ice cream from her fingers. I don't know yet. I'm not used to people knowing my daddy is special. I'm not special. I just did what needed to be done. Emma looked at him with those two knowing eyes. That's what makes you special, Daddy. You don't think you are. Monday morning, Nathan received a call from Victoria. The board wanted to meet with him Tuesday. Formal introduction, contract signing, security assessment briefing. Tuesday morning arrived with the weight of transition. Nathan woke early, unable to sleep past dawn, despite having no work shift. He made breakfast. Real breakfast, not the quick cereal Emma usually ate with Mrs. Chen. Pancakes from scratch. Emma emerged from her room, drawn by the smell of cooking. She stopped in the doorway, surprised. You're making pancakes? Seemed like a pancake kind of morning. They ate together at the table, syrup pooling golden on their plates. Emma kicked her feet beneath her chair. Are you nervous? She asked. About today? A little. Mrs. Chen says being nervous means you care about doing well. Mrs. Chen is very wise. Emma considered this while chewing. Then she said, I'm proud of you, Daddy. Even though I was scared, I'm still proud. Nathan felt something shift in his chest. The final piece of justification for every risk he'd taken. Emma was proud. That mattered more than commendations or new job titles or anything else. Thank you, sweetheart. That means everything to me. Nathan stood in front of his closet deciding what to wear to meet the board of directors. He didn't own a suit. His wardrobe consisted of janitor uniforms, jeans, and 2 button-down shirts he wore to parent-teacher conferences. He chose the better of the 2 shirts, light blue, slightly wrinkled despite his attempt at ironing, and his least faded jeans. Looking in the mirror, he saw someone caught between identities. Not quite the janitor anymore. Not yet the executive. Emma appeared behind him, already dressed for school in her favorite shirt with the robot on it. You look nice, she said. I look like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. You look like my daddy who saved someone's life and is about to get an important job. She walked over and straightened his collar with the same careful gesture she'd used Friday morning. There. Now you're perfect. The board meeting was in Conference Room A. 9 board members sat around a table that could have seated 20. Richard Sutton's empty chair at the far end looked like a wound that hadn't yet scarred over. The board chair, Margaret Chen, no relation to Nathan's neighbor, stood as they entered. She was in her 60s, silver hair cut precisely, eyes that had witnessed decades of corporate battles. Mr. Cross, thank you for joining us. She gestured to a seat. Please sit. Nathan remained standing. Old military instinct. Never sit until you understand the room's dynamics. Margaret seemed to recognize this. A slight smile touched her lips. Before we begin the formal proceedings, I want to say something personal. She looked around the table at the other board members. We failed. Every person in this room failed to see what was happening in our own company. We trusted the wrong people, ignored warning signs, and nearly lost our CEO because we were too focused on quarterly reports to notice a conspiracy forming right in front of us. The room was silent. This wasn't the corporate language Nathan had expected. You were a janitor, Margaret continued, looking directly at Nathan. Invisible to most of us. I probably walked past you 100 times and never once acknowledged your presence. That invisibility gave you a perspective we'd lost. The ability to see what was actually happening instead of what we wanted to believe was happening. Another board member spoke up, David Park, the technology director. Richard Sutton fooled all of us. Some of us had worked with him for 15 years. We thought we knew him. We were wrong about everything. Nathan finally sat. The vulnerability in the room felt genuine, uncomfortable, real. I'm not here to make you feel better about being fooled, Nathan said quietly. Richard was good at what he did. He built trust over decades specifically so he could exploit it when necessary. That's not a failure of judgment. That's encountering a professional manipulator. Margaret's expression softened slightly. Generous of you to say. But the truth is, Victoria's father tried to warn us something was wrong. We dismissed his concerns as the paranoia of an aging CEO. If we'd listened, he might still be alive, Victoria finished, her voice steady but strained. But we can't change that. We can only make sure it doesn't happen again. David pulled out a folder. We've drafted a contract for the Chief of Safety and Security position. Full executive authority over all security protocols, personnel, and infrastructure. Salary is $400,000 annually plus benefits. You'll report directly to the CEO, with quarterly briefings to the full board. Nathan stared at the number. $400,000. He currently made $38,000 emptying trash and mopping floors. That's too much, he said. The room went still. Excuse me? Margaret's eyebrows rose. I said that's too much. I don't need $400,000. What I need is budget authority to rebuild security properly. What I need is a team I can trust. What I need is the freedom to tell this board uncomfortable truths without worrying about being fired for it. Nathan paused. Pay me $150,000. That's more than enough for me and my daughter. Put the rest into an employee scholarship fund. Full tuition for employees' children from elementary through college. And put it in writing that the fund is permanent, protected from future board decisions. The board members exchanged glances. Victoria was watching him with an expression Nathan couldn't quite read. Margaret spoke first. Mr. Cross, that's not how executive compensation works. Then change how it works. You said you failed because you were too focused on quarterly reports to notice what mattered. Prove you meant that. Build something that helps the people who actually keep this company running. The maintenance workers, the administrative assistants, the security guards. The people everyone walks past without seeing. David was writing rapidly, making notes. A permanent protected fund. Full tuition coverage for employees' children from elementary through college. That's approximately $8 million annually based on current employee numbers. Can the company afford it? Nathan asked. Margaret looked at Victoria. Can we? Victoria's hand moved to her father's pendant. My father used to say that a company's worth isn't measured in stock price. It's measured in how many families it can help build futures. Yes, we can afford it. We should have been doing it all along. Margaret nodded slowly. Then she looked back at Nathan. You're asking for less money and more responsibility. You're prioritizing other people's children over your own financial security. Either you're the most foolish person I've ever met, or the most principled. She paused. I'm hoping it's the second one. I'm just someone who knows what it's like to raise a child alone on wages that don't cover the month. I don't need to be wealthy. I need to look my daughter in the eye and tell her I used this opportunity to help people like us. The vote was unanimous. The contract was modified. Nathan Cross became Chief of Safety and Security of Brennan Industries, with a salary of $150,000 and the authority to rebuild everything from the ground up. After the board meeting ended and most members had left, Margaret approached Nathan quietly. My grandson is 7, same age as your daughter. Her voice had lost its corporate formality. His father, my son, died 2 years ago. My daughter-in-law works 3 jobs trying to keep them afloat. When you proposed that scholarship fund, I thought about him, about the future he might not have access to without help. She paused. Thank you for thinking of the children no one sees. 3 months later, the scholarship fund launched on a Tuesday in November. Victoria insisted Nathan be present for the announcement. The company auditorium filled with employees and their families. Nathan stood backstage, watching through a gap in the curtain as people found seats. He recognized faces, maintenance workers he'd cleaned alongside, administrative assistants who'd never looked at him twice when he was pushing a mop bucket, security guards who now reported to him. Emma sat in the front row beside Mrs. Chen, wearing her best dress, navy blue with small white flowers. She'd insisted on looking professional for her father's big day. Victoria found him in the wings. You ready? No, she smiled. Good. That means you still understand what this means. Nathan walked onto the stage. Hundreds of faces looked back at him. Some he knew, most he didn't. All of them watching, waiting. He found Emma in the front row. She waved, a small, encouraging gesture that steadied the ground beneath him. 3 months ago, I was a janitor in this building, Nathan began. His voice carried clearly, surprising him with its steadiness. I cleaned your offices and emptied your trash and mopped your floors. Most of you never noticed me. That was intentional. I'd spent 3 years making myself invisible because I thought that was the safest way to live. He paused, gathering the words. But invisibility isn't safety. It's just hiding. And when you hide, you can't help the people who need you. You can't build the things that matter. You can't show your children that courage means being seen. Emma's eyes were locked on him, shining with something that looked like pride mixed with tears. When Victoria Brennan and the board offered me a position as Chief of Safety and Security, they also offered me a salary I'd never imagined having. $400,000 a year. That's life-changing money for someone who was making $38,000. He heard murmurs ripple through the crowd. People doing the math, understanding the gulf. But I asked them to reduce my salary to $150,000 and put the difference into something permanent. Something that would matter long after I'm gone. Nathan looked directly at the families in the audience. The Brennan Industries Educational Trust will provide full tuition coverage, elementary through college, for the children of every employee, not just executives, everyone, maintenance workers, administrative staff, security guards, the people who keep this company running but who often struggle to give their children the futures they deserve. The silence was absolute. Then someone started clapping, then another. Then the entire auditorium rose in standing ovation, and Nathan stood there feeling the weight of gratitude he hadn't expected, hadn't sought, didn't entirely know how to hold. Emma was crying openly now, and Mrs. Chen had her arm around the girl's shoulders. Tommy Chen, Mrs. Chen's grandson, visiting from California, sat beside them, his face transformed by the realization that his future had just opened in ways he'd stopped imagining possible. After the announcement, Nathan was surrounded by people who wanted to thank him. A maintenance worker named Carlos, whose daughter could now attend art school. An administrative assistant named Jennifer, whose son had just been accepted to MIT but couldn't afford to go, until now. A security guard whose twins would be the first in their family to graduate college. Each story was a life intersecting with his choice. Each gratitude was evidence that one decision in a boardroom had sent ripples through dozens of families, hundreds of futures. Emma rescued him eventually, threading through the crowd and taking his hand. "Daddy, can we go home now? Mrs. Chen says all this attention is making you itchy." Nathan laughed, a sound of relief and love. "Yes, let's go home." That evening, Nathan's phone rang. Margaret Chen, calling from her personal line. "Mr. Cross? I'm calling because I wanted to tell you something off the record. My grandson, the one I mentioned in our first meeting. His name is David. He's 7, same as Emma. His father, my son, died in a construction accident. OSHA violations, inadequate safety equipment, a company that cut corners because profit mattered more than lives." Nathan listened, understanding where this was going. "When you proposed the scholarship fund, I thought about David's future, about his mother working 3 jobs to keep them housed and fed, about how my son died building things for a company that didn't value his life enough to provide proper safety equipment." Margaret's voice grew thick. "You've given my grandson the future his father died trying to provide. I need you to know what that means, not as a board member, as a grandmother. I'm honored I could help," Nathan said, inadequate words for enormous meaning. "But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I want you to know something about how this company is changing. Since you've taken over security, violations have dropped 83%. Safety incidents are down 71%. But more than that, people feel seen. The maintenance staff, the contractors, the people who used to be invisible. They know someone's paying attention now. Someone who understands what it means to work in the margins. I'm just doing the job. No. You're transforming how we think about the job. You're teaching us that safety isn't about compliance. It's about valuing the people who trust us with their labor and their lives. She paused. My son died because someone like you wasn't there to see what needed seeing. David will have a future because you chose to see everything. That's not just doing a job, Mr. Cross. That's redemption in action. After they hung up, Nathan sat in the quiet of his apartment, holding the weight of Margaret's words. Emma appeared in the doorway, already in her pajamas, the stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. You okay, Daddy? You look sad. Nathan held out his arm and she came to him, curling into his side. Not sad. Just thinking about how one choice can change so many lives. Like when you saved Miss Brennan? Like that. But also like choosing to come home to you every day. Like choosing to be visible instead of hidden. Like choosing to help when it would have been easier to look away. Emma was quiet for a moment, her small fingers tracing patterns on his arm. Mrs. Chen says every choice is a seed. You don't always know what will grow from it, but you have to plant it anyway and trust that something good will come. Nathan kissed the top of her head. Mrs. Chen is very wise. She says she learned it from her husband, your grandfather, the one who died saving people in the fire. Nathan had never told Emma details about how his father died. But of course Mrs. Chen had. Of course she'd shared the story of a man who'd run toward danger when others ran away. Do you think that's in our family? Emma asked quietly. Running toward things instead of away? I think it's in everyone, Nathan said carefully. But some people learn to listen to that instinct and some people learn to ignore it. I spent 3 years ignoring it. Then one morning, I couldn't anymore. Because of the bomb. Because someone needed help and I was the only one who could provide it. In that moment, all the reasons to stay hidden seemed smaller than the reason to act. Emma nodded against his chest. Then she said, I'm glad you acted. Not just because of Miss Brennan. Because now I get to see you be the person you actually are, not the person you were pretending to be. The observation was so precise, so clear-eyed, that Nathan felt tears prick his eyes. His 7-year-old daughter had seen through 3 years of careful invisibility, had understood that he'd been hiding from himself as much as from the world. When did you get so wise? He managed. I've always been wise. You just started noticing. They sat together in the quiet evening, father and daughter, holding the space where courage and love and showing up all meant the same thing. Outside, the city moved through its evening rhythms. Inside, 2 people occupied the center of their small, sufficient world, planting seeds they'd never see fully grow, but trusting that something good would come. Nathan thought about Friday morning in a parking garage, about the knife and the tires and the impossible choice, about Victoria's face when she'd realized he was telling the truth, about Derek with a gun and Richard's desperate betrayal. How close it had all come to ending differently. But it hadn't. They'd survived. And in surviving, they'd built something better than what existed before. Nathan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Cross, this is Tommy Chen, Mrs. Chen's grandson. She told me what you did with the scholarship fund. I'm 17. I was planning to skip college because my mom can't afford it. Now I can go. I just wanted to say thank you. You changed my life. Nathan stared at the message. This boy he'd never met. This future he'd helped make possible. He typed back, Tommy, your grandmother is one of the wisest people I know. She taught me that showing up matters. Keep showing up. The world needs people like you. The response came quickly. Like you mean. The world needs people like you. Nathan set his phone down and walked to Emma's room one more time, watched his daughter sleep, counted each breath as evidence that he'd kept his promises. Tomorrow he'd put on a button-down shirt and go to an office with his name on it. He'd make decisions that affected hundreds of lives. He'd rebuild security systems and transform infrastructures and prove that invisible people saw things others missed. But tonight, he was just Emma's father. Just the man who showed up. Just someone who'd learned that love and courage looked the same when you stripped away everything else. He thought about his father dying in a Beijing factory fire, saving strangers. About Mrs. Chen carrying that legacy quietly, teaching her son to do the same. About how courage looked different than people thought. Sometimes it was running into burning buildings. Sometimes it was just getting up every morning and being present for the people who needed you. Nathan returned to the living room and looked at Emma's drawing taped to the refrigerator, the figure in the window, waiting. He looked at Tommy's message on his phone. 2 testimonies to the architecture of showing up. 2 reminders of what mattered. Outside, the city continued its endless motion. Inside, a father stood in a kitchen that smelled like dumplings in childhood, holding gratitude too large for words, feeling the weight of choices that had led here. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, new ways of being visible. But tonight was for remembering that he'd come home, that Emma was safe, that promises had been kept, that showing up, even when it was hard, was always enough. The knife had gone into the tire with a hiss that sounded like a dying breath. But what had died that morning wasn't a person. It was the version of Nathan Cross who believed that invisibility meant safety. What had been born was something harder and more honest. A man who understood that being seen meant being vulnerable, but that vulnerability was the price of mattering. Nathan turned off the lights and stood at the window, looking out at the city where millions of people lived invisible lives, made invisible sacrifices, hoped invisible hopes. And he understood, finally, that the opposite of invisible wasn't famous or wealthy or powerful. The opposite of invisible was present. And he was here. He'd always be here. For Emma. For the people who depended on him. For the children whose futures he'd helped secure. For everyone who needed someone to see them, to show up, to choose courage over comfort. The city lights reflected in the window like scattered promises. Nathan touched Emma's drawing in his wallet, the figure waiting in the window, and smiled. Tomorrow he'd show up again, and the day after that, and the day after that, because that was what love looked like when you stripped away everything else, just showing up, every single day. And so, we place another story onto the shelf. Each one of these feels like a different little world we get to visit for a while, doesn't it? I have a question for you. If you were building a library of human experiences, what title would you give this story? The Art of Forgiveness? A Long Road Home? I'm genuinely curious what you'd label it. Drop your title in the comments. This library is something we are all building together. When you subscribe, you're helping us find and preserve the next story that needs to be told. The like button just helps new visitors find this particular aisle. It is an absolute honor to be building this collection with you. Thank you for everything. I'll see you for the next one.